hell is Dawn of the Jedi?
Dawn of the Jedi is, funny enough, his next big venture.
Set 25,000 years before Star Wars Episode A New Hope. I say A New Hope because I don't know what the little Roman numerals next to Star Wars Episode A New Hope is. Don't put this in there.
Hello, I'm Sam.
Hello, Sam. I'm Ian.
Hello, Ian. And we welcome you to the first episode of the Deep Dive 5, a show where we dive into 5 topics regarding the career of a filmmaker and their latest film or TV show. As this is the first episode of the Deep Dive 5, we thought it would be best to explain the 5 topics in question. There will be a chat or a review about the filmmaker's latest film or TV show. After, we will discuss the filmmaker's backstory, followed by a reflection on their previous work. We will then make predictions on the filmmaker's future, see out the show by debating if we would recommend the latest film to you, our listeners or viewers.
It's like a literal script.
Do you think?
I think so. Well, I mean, compared to like the way that you were just talking that, it's like a literal script that we were reading from. I like it.
I tried.
I like it.
I tried to make it sound natural. Our first episode will focus on the career of James Mangold, who has recently released a Bob Dylan biopic. Now, without further ado, our chat or mini review on the filmmaker's latest film. A Complete Unknown, which is the latest film by director James Mangold. It's coming out in the UK on the 17th of January. It has already had its release in the USA, which was on Christmas Day. The reviews so far have been mostly positive. What is your opinion on Bob Dylan himself and the film A Complete Unknown?
I think it will be an interesting Bob Dylan film, A Complete Unknown. To be honest, I don't really know a lot about it. I've got to be completely honest, I pretty much have fallen off of the film industry for like the last 4 years.
Yes, this is why we started a film podcast.
This is why we started it, because it was like, this is inspiration. This is a reason to get back into film again. Been a little while since we last actually watched anything of value. Like the last thing I literally watched was Madam Web a few days ago, and it was just purely to have an idea of whether or not it was actually as bad as it was.
Yeah. Well, after hearing your opinion on Madam Web, I thought it would be best that we reinstall your love of filmmaking by doing this film podcast where we will try to get you back into the world of modern
so
cinema.
This is just actually now just a podcast about just generally can this guy actually catch up with 4 years of cinema?
Yeah, because I'm seeing all the new films.
Yeah, Alien Romulus is being added to Disney Plus tomorrow.
Is it?
So I will definitely be watching that.
Oh, please.
I watched The Substance recently.
Did you?
That was decent. I watched The Iron Claw.
Oh, okay.
Do you know it's a wrestling film about like it was like a trio?
Yeah.
Because WWE went onto Netflix and now that's reaffirmed. I'm basically a WWE fan again. But if I'm being honest, I'm a WWE fan between the years of 1997 and 2003. So I'm re-watching everything that happened in that era.
Ian, what's this got to do with James Mangold?
It has nothing to do with James Mangold. But we're giving a prefix, a bit of an idea about why this podcast has come about.
Okay, that's true.
So,
but yes, A Complete Unknown is the latest film by James Mangold, and it is his second biopic after the Johnny Cash film Walk the Line, which came out about 20 years ago. So he's well adverse to telling tales of iconic American singers. I mean, we haven't seen this film yet, but we thought it would be good to talk through the Deep Dive 5 about James Mangold's background and how he came to be from Disney in the beginning until the modern age of Bob Dylan biopics and major franchises, which include Indiana Jones and Star Wars. But we'll talk a bit about his backstory.
Do you think there'll be any hot takes? Any hot takes at all, do you reckon?
What, with James Mangold?
Yeah.
Well, he's a bit... Because he's done some amazing films, but I wouldn't say that he's well-known, particularly, outside of, like, people like me and you.
Yeah.
And film buffs in general. Because if I were to walk the streets of England and ask, do you know who James Mangold is? I think a lot of people would be like, oh, the guy who directed Indiana Jones.
I think that's it. It's more for his more recent fare. I mean, definitely going back through his back catalogue and things like that on IMDb is definitely show me that he was involved in far much more than I actually remembered him. Yeah, I think it'd be good. I think it'd be good to go back and revisit his career.
Well, we'll do a little bit of that now.
Cool.
So, James Mangold was born in 1963 and he was raised in New York by famed artists Robert and Sylvia Mangold. He would later attend the California Institute of Arts, where he was taught by Alexander McKendrick, who was a very famous director from the 50s, who directed films such as Sweet Smell of Success. And he pointed Mangold in the direction of Cal Arts School of Theatre, which would lead to Mangold's first collaboration with Disney. Impressed with Mangold, Disney signed him as a writer-director, and he would go on to co-write the animated film Oliver and Company, which you were particularly stunned by.
Excited about.
I believe. I don't think I've seen that film since 1997, so I can't really give much of an opinion on it.
No, neither have I.
But it was his first big box office success. In the early 90s, he went to study further at New York's famed Columbia University under Milos Forman, who directed the iconic One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And he helped Mangold develop his first two scripts, with one of them being his directorial debut, Heavy, in 1995. And over the next 30 years, Mangold has directed some of the most compelling biopics and comic book films of the 21st century, and has proven a capable director in a mixture of genres such as the Western, action, adventure, and comedy. How many of his films have you seen? And could you pick your favourite and least favourite?
That is such an incredible question to start with, because I haven't actually sat there and counted any of these films. How do you start me off with a maths question to start with? I think it's one of those things where I was introduced to Mangold probably second Wolverine film, and then after second Wolverine film came out, it was then I really liked that. I was a big fan of
Logan?
I was no Wolverine 2.
Oh, it was just called The
Wolverine. Big fan of that. I really enjoyed it much more than I think quite a lot of other people did, because I liked the grounded, gritty. It was a bit darker. Not really a lot happened, but I actually liked that. I thought that was a good film. And then from that point, I kind of watched Mangold's career, if that is the best way to describe it, from a directorial standpoint. I think from just kind of taking that up and following him from there, it then made me kind of retro whatever way, kind of go back and look at things and realise that he's actually been involved in a lot of things I actually quite liked.
So through that, can you tell me your favourite and least favourite James Mangold?
No, I can't do that. Well, that's like just assuming that I'm going to have that straight to head of mind. It's not going to be head of mind, right at the forefront of mind. I don't have that. I'm scanning through IMDb right now trying to find an answer. But
you've had all
what's
day.
Yours? What's yours?
You've had all day to look it up. Oh, Logan's my favourite by a country mile.
Le Mans was pretty good.
Logan, I mean, we'll go through essentially his career. So he started with Heavy.
Did you actually get around to watching that?
I did not. But yeah, so James Mangold was actually incredibly young when he signed on with Disney. He was only like 22, I think. Mm-hmm. I tried to do a bit of research and I couldn't find anything, but there definitely must have been some kind of like breakdown in relationship, because he went from being signed on as a writer-director at Disney to doing nothing. Mm-hmm. And then he basically made his name in independent cinema. So he made, in the 90s, he made Heavy, the underrated Copland, Girl Interrupted, which won Angelina Jolie her one and only Oscar. Mm-hmm. He didn't really become a studio director until I think after Girl Interrupted. But he does have a collaboration somewhat with Hugh Jackman. We're just watching one of the best scenes from Logan, actually.
Is this what we're just going to fade away from whatever it is we're talking about and just focus on Logan? I think it's a good thing. We've got Logan on the background. It's inspiring.
It's a really good scene, though.
I think you're right. I think he's got a really interesting and varied career, so there must be something that happened there. I mean, to be honest, there's also an argument for he could have just been like a jobber writer that was just trying to find a place. Disney just happened to throw Oliver and Company his way. But there couldn't have been too much of a breakdown, because most of his career now is centered around Disney again. So
yes. He's one of Disney's
favourite. It's not like he could be
guys.
blacklisted or anything like that, right?
No.
So from that standpoint, I don't know if it was a breakdown or whether or not he just went off and wanted to do his own thing. Girl Interrupted's not a very Disney film, right? So neither's Copland, and so I can't imagine that Heavy is either. So to have that trajectory linked to, I mean, unless you were going to go down,
I feel like he probably grew up massively from his experience at Disney originally, because his films are quite deep. I mean, Copland it's amazing, really, because he was only about 33 when that was made, and he's working with some of absolute A-listers in that film. Like everyone's pretty huge. And that film in many ways revitalised Sylvester Stallone's career, which I feel like James Mangold's quite good at. He's very good at getting performances out of like potentially difficult actors.
Well, I mean, you just have to just look at that list when you think, if you've got Stallone there, but at the same time, I mean, you've got Russell Crowe later on. Well, I don't know if I'd say... I'm a reviewer of my own opinion, and I think in this sense, as I'm kind of reading this aloud, I'm like, there's not a lot of awkward people there.
What, in Copland?
They're probably in Copland.
There's like 6.
What, awkward actors?
What, Ray Liotta?
De Niro?
Yeah.
What a difficult actor.
Keitel? Harvey Keitel was like one of those famous difficult actors ever.
True. Michael Rappaport.
Yeah, but you got to remember, he made this film with like only one film behind him.
Oh,
and
yeah,
he wrote Copland. So he's basically a man of like our age.
Yeah.
Putting our age on the podcast already. Like working with like some of the most famous actors of the previous 25 years.
Yeah, true.
And it worked. And yeah, I think Stallone's career, because his career was like collapsing horribly by that point in the 90s.
Yeah. You got comparisons, I suppose, with like Tarantino with that cast though. Like Tarantino with Reservoir Dogs and so.
Yeah, but Tarantino's he's like the exception to the rule. Like he just didn't give a shit.
Yeah, but I mean, when you're
Mangold's
looking at comparisons,
like Tarantino never went through a studio system ever, really. He was always on the outskirts and independent. Where Mangold,
we also don't really know what Mangold did before this point. So like he could have done countless amounts of projects before this point. So he could be pretty well versed in being a director at that point, right?
I don't know. It's hard.
I mean, I know you've got it could be overwhelming being on set with people that have that much experience and that much clout, let's say.
Yeah.
At the same time, he might not have been averse to it because he might have been on quite a few sets, and it's that whole idea of just being like, divorce yourself from who you're working with and just kind of crack on with it. But equally, these guys might have been so good that you just give them the script and they get on with it.
Yeah. Well, he has worked with, some of the all-time greats. He's worked with Harrison Ford. He's worked with Christian Bale twice. He's worked with Joaquin Phoenix. He's worked with Matt Damon. And obviously he's worked with kind of the future of cinema in many ways with Timothée Chalamet, with a Complete Unknown. So what is the film out of all of these? So we've got like Copland, we've got Identity, we've got Walk the Line, 3:10 to Yuma.
I love 3:10 to Yuma. 3:10 to Yuma is one of those films that surprisingly you would have seen so many times, and yet every single time you see the box cover you go, I haven't seen that. I have literally done that. I've probably seen, I think I've bought it multiple times thinking, oh, that looks good, and then I sit down and I go, I think I've seen this, and I get to the very last scene, I'm like, I've definitely seen this.
It's an incredibly good film.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So good. And actually the performances in it, the whole thing is so subtle until that final moment. Or at least the final scene. And I think because of that, it's just... This, I think, is set him apart. I mean, we have to be honest. We're Western heads, aren't
yes.
we? We love a good Western. As Westerns go, this kind of should be up there with modern-day Westerns.
I
as
would
like a
say,
real kind of highlight of what Westerns can still do in modern day.
Yeah. I know it's a remake, 3:10 to Yuma, but I can't think of many traditional Westerns since 3:10 to Yuma that have been as good as this one.
No, I mean, they remade The Magnificent Seven. That was nowhere near as good.
Yeah.
They completely lost the point.
I can only think of Tarantino's Westerns that
Yeah.
have sort of reached that level of acclaim. There's neo-Westerns that are very good, like Hell or High Water's one and No Country for Old Men. But in terms of like that traditional, old-fashioned gunslinger kind of Western, I can't think of many better. But that sort of works into Mangold's... It doesn't matter what kind of genre he's tackling, he usually does a very good job with it.
Yeah.
He hasn't made too many duds, really.
Yeah.
Like Go Interrupted, even though in that film...
It was mixed when it came out.
Is mixed. It's got like a good legacy, and obviously it's got the Angelina Jolie's. Because even if the film is somewhat mixed, he gets really good performances, like regardless. Like even Night and Day, which is just this very strange comedy with Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz, it kind of works.
Yeah.
I mean, my main memory of that film is when they appeared on Top Gear.
Yeah.
To like promote the film, and it became like this big scandal because apparently they like faked everything for them.
Really?
It's quite interesting. Yeah, they did a star in a reasonably priced car, and apparently they like cheated to allow Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz to get like the top spot. And Tom Cruise did his classic like high-fiving everybody and jumping and being a strange man. Cameron Diaz hasn't set foot in England since.
Are you serious?
No, I don't know about that. Just making up
Just out of sheer fear.
But yeah, I mean, he's made crime dramas, he's made psychological thrillers, biopics, westerns, comedies, comic book films. He's very much not a guy who stays in his lane, which I think is quite impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Identity, which I saw for the first time the other night, I thought was very interesting because you just can't believe that he made this little hour-and-a-half thriller that absolutely flies by, and then he also made like Indiana Jones. I can't think of many directors who have gone from making very small films like that to basically being in charge of like massive franchises. Because he's made Indiana Jones and he's going to make a future Star Wars film, apparently. You never really know with Lucasfilm which way it's going to go.
They have about 1,000 things in production at the moment, so...
Yes. We'll have a good chat about Star Wars at some point, I imagine.
And Marvel. We'll
and Marvel. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, as we've mentioned, we've got Logan in the background, which for me personally is my favourite Mangold film. It basically ticks every boxes of what I think a superhero film can do for like not just like its sort of niche audience of young people. I think everyone would love this film because it's so relatable what Logan goes through for like everybody. I remember seeing this for the first time when it came out and was just completely blown away. It's also the first comic book film to be nominated for an Oscar for Best Screenplay, which I think is probably one of Mangold's highlights.
Yeah.
That he actually managed to elevate the superhero genre to that level. Because obviously there's been Oscar winners in the past for performances, i.e. Heath Ledger as the Joker and Joaquin Phoenix eventually as the Joker. But I don't think anyone ever saw a comic book film acclaimed for its writing so much.
Yeah, I think Logan was a real kind of... I think I mentioned it at the beginning. Changer. I think it was a game changer, but it was off of the foundations that you created with the Wolverine.
Yes.
Like when you go back and you watch the Wolverine, you kind of go, oh, actually, this is where you always wanted to take it. And I think that like there's a really interesting path that you kind of track, at least within. We'll talk this through probably when we talk about Marvel films and 20th Century Fox movies and all things like that. But essentially, the path that you track between Wolverine and then Logan is the story then that he wanted to tell with that character. Because there are like slices of it in Wolverine. Like there's not loads of it because there's still that influence of like the X-Men films and the original and like Singer's direction that he wanted to take the X-Men and how obviously he procured Wolverine along that path. You always see that Mango was trying to crowbar Wolverine away from that franchise and just kind of start up something a bit different. And Logan's kind of the culmination of what he started.
He's got both hands on the wheel with Logan.
Exactly.
He's in full control.
But he's also given full control of it because it was almost like that whole like last hurrah. Like that was it was kind of almost implanted in it. Like like even with the end of it was at the time when Disney were buying 20th Century Fox. It was all of this is going on. So there's like a finality about what he's writing and what he's doing here. And I think because of that, then it then leads to this element of what can we do, but also what can't we do. He could have quite easily opened this up for old man Logan storytelling, where it's just it's not like the story that we're getting in Logan kind of has elements in that comic book run. So the old man Logan story is like Wolverine in a post-apocalyptic future type thing and just trying to survive. There's a lot of that in Logan. Because of that, it can very easily have been spun off into all these different sequels and be like, oh, the Hulk is here, and oh, there's Hawkeye's over here, and all of that lot. But they don't. He tells a very nuance isn't the right way to describe it, but quite a sensitive story about a character who has lived so much that we've lived that journey with. Has like kind of finished it off in a good way. It's good. I will have to find more words. I will have to jump into a thesaurus or a dictionary at some point or find other ways to describe films other than, that was good or something like that. But I think structurally, pace-wise, sentimentally, kind of what he does with Logan, I think is very, very impressive considering that what was going on around the landscape of Marvel and comic book movies at that time.
Yeah. Do you think that Deadpool obviously brought in like this ultra violence? Do you think Logan was like inevitable after that? And like Deadpool almost unleashed the potential of a proper sort of a film that could really bring out the greatness of a character like Wolverine?
I think it opened the door to allow a Wolverine story with ultra violence to be told. Because I think before that point, the market had dictated what a superhero film should be. the money is on the younger audiences. It skews towards those younger audiences. It didn't realise the fact there were older audiences that were also interested in these characters told in a more mature way. Deadpool was that first, like, kind of, whatever analogy you want to kind of bring to it, but it's like the first stone, the first brick, whatever like that. It was the first moment in which I think it kind of gave permission for filmmakers to come in and actually say, no, actually, we can use these characters in a really interesting way. We can tell different stories. I think it also paved the way for Joker, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. I think it allowed for like those doors to be open, where it was like, no, these are R-rated comic book films. And so I don't think it's necessarily just limited to Marvel in that sense, but I think what it does do is it just allowed a more captive audience that skews older, like more mature themes told within their stories, that superheroes can also kind of live within that space as well. With the characters like Wolverine, for instance, you have quite a lot of philosophical things that you can discuss as well and talk about. Mangold brings that in with his writing, with his direction, with the tone, with the atmosphere that he creates. And so because of that, you end up with something that stands on its own 2 feet. Like, it somehow manages to thrive on what came before it, but also at the same time stand alone in the story that it tells. You could quite easily watch a Logan movie, like watch Logan, and not really have a lot of idea what's happened before it, but you will still be wrapped up in the story that it's trying to tell. But just to kind of spin it off, Le Mans or Ford versus Ferrari, depending on where you have seen it.
Well, I think that was his. He had an amazing consecutive film with Logan and then Ford versus Ferrari.
Yeah,
which I would probably say is like his peak. Mm-hmm. No, it's a brilliant film. It's probably Christian Bale's most underrated film in many ways.
It does that interesting thing with sports movies, I think, where it
gives it a fresh take.
Well, it gives it a fresh take, but it also is paced really well. It's like that whole idea where it's like you've got a final point to get to, and you've got a story that you need to tell to get to that final point. And so many movies kind of fumble it with that premise, that whole idea, because they just rush it, or there's just not, it's not paced well. It doesn't tell a story up to that point. It's kind of quite dull, and then the moment happens and that's it. Rush did it really well. Yeah. So if you go back to Ron Howard's Rush film, that's also paced really well. You know that there is an end point to it. It tells the story up to that point. It's almost documentary in style, in as much as it has to get to certain places before then you kind of get to, the titular part of the film in this case. I mean, in this case, we said Le Mans, which is actually the actual point of it.
Yeah.
Ford versus Ferrari.
Well, that's the interesting thing, because it does a very good job of building care for the characters before the events.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, like you really care about how this is going to work out for Bale's character and Matt Damon's character, and you even somewhat care about Ford.
Yeah. but that's one of the interesting things, I think, where it's really well done in as much as it's written very well. And I think, obviously, that's not James Mangold. It's written by other guys, right? But it's written really well that then a director can kind of take it and kind of put it in its place, understand and know exactly what it is that the writers are trying to convey. It can put pictures to the words, right? That's obviously the directive of a director in that sense. But Mangold just really kind of takes it again with perhaps potentially that eye. There's a Western edge to this. It's not exactly like, you're watching it and just going, oh, there's no point to this. There's like an element of like you've got two what should be opposing characters that get on really well. They respect each other and they understand each other, but they clash. That's a nuance that a lot of films don't tend to get, is the fact that they're as much buddy cop dramas as they are like quite grounded dramas in that sense too. Bale, Damon work really well together, and I think Mangold just kind of, again, he just, from a directorial standpoint, he can just manage to just kind of stir the pot enough that then the final meal that we get from it is just indulgent.
Were you convinced by Christian Bale's Brummie accent?
Yeah.
It did take me a while to realise he's from Birmingham.
To me, I like that he tries.
Yeah. Going on to Mangold's future. So he's obviously had a well-respected career. Where do you see his career progresses as the 2020s go on? How do you think his new Star Wars film will work if it ever comes out? I mean, he did make Indiana Jones, which I have very mixed feelings about, and it was like a big box office bomb, but I don't think that really had anything to do with James Mangold. I think that was mainly to do with Disney's approach to the Indiana Jones' character.
I don't know if this is a hot take, but I actually quite liked it.
You did?
I
didn't hate it. I have very similar feelings towards this film the same way I do with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where it just feels very underwhelming at times, and there's not a great deal of heart to either film. They don't feel like they really were necessary.
I don't think any of these films are really necessary, though. To be honest, like I think there's an
even the
there's
first
an
three?
argument for. I mean, what does it really ever need? Is it are sequels ever really necessary? They're kind of along the lines of kind of a bit more cash grabby. It's just kind of it's Indiana Jones once again. Indiana Jones is a bit different though to other franchises in as much as technically The Last Crusade is the best of them, right?
Yeah, it's my favourite.
Yeah, exactly, and so that then gives credence to the idea that it was necessary because you needed to have that film in order to justify.
It's a beautiful father and son tale,
but it doesn't stop the idea that actually though that it was kind of unnecessary for the start point because that story is so different to the one you get in the first one.
Yeah.
So I think there's always going to be a nuance of they are not necessary. It's just whether or not it's any good. Because if it was really good, then you would say it's necessary. But it's the fact that it's not very good that people turn around and say it's not necessary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I suppose it's interesting that, because I remember when Spielberg was originally supposed to direct the fifth Indiana Jones film. It's called Dial of Destiny, which I've never liked the title, but that's another story.
I mean, the recent Xbox game has just come out, which is The Circle of Truth or whatever.
That game's meant to be good.
It's supposed to be incredible.
So Spielberg stepped down and James Mangold took his place, and the reception was predominantly quite negative. And that's what's interesting about James Mangold. He just doesn't seem to have this mainstream big reputation with people, which is quite interesting considering he's had a very, very respectable career. And most of his films have got a lot of like Oscars around them. As I mentioned, Go Interrupted's got an Oscar. Walk the Line, Reese Witherspoon won an Oscar. Logan obviously was nominated for a screenplay Oscar. Ford vs. Ferrari was very successful. And I'm sure A Complete Unknown, which is obviously coming out soon, Timothée Chalamet is the hot favourite to win Best Actor. It's just interesting that he just doesn't seem to have like that Tarantino level of fame or Paul Thomas Anderson and people like that.
I wonder though sometimes if it comes down to just pure, not reputation, but there's like tentpole movies that people release that are either good or bad and then kind of skews people's opinion of them, right? M. Night Shyamalan does The Sixth Sense. Everyone goes, oh my God, this is amazing. He's like the god of the twister, the twist at the end of the movie.
But he never made Twister.
But then every single consequential release has kind of become a bit of a joke. And so, but there's still a lot of people at the beginning of every single one of his films, it'll be from the director of Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
So that will always be it. There's an element with Mangold where it's like, actually, probably, if you go back to 2010 and he was doing Night and Day, Tom Cruise, Cameron Diaz, pretty much heights of their career, that's a big flop to have on your resume, right? In terms of like the grand scheme of critical success. Then you've got the quieter films, 3:10 to Yuma, for instance. Like, it's got big stars in it. It's a Western that was made in 2007. It's not exactly going to have a lot of, like, kind of hype behind it. People are going to remember the dud more so than they're going to remember the success. Film circles and people that actually follow film, I think, appreciate Mangold much more than, say, if you're a fan of a franchise and you go back and you look at Mangold's back catalogue and you don't know a lot about film, you would have easily missed Walk the Line. You would have easily missed Identity. You would have easily missed 3:10 to Yuma. So by the time then you get to a guy taking over from Spielberg for Indiana Jones that has kind of, you know, even Le Mans and things like that at the time, it wasn't exactly like, it was good, but it wasn't exactly like it absolutely destroyed the box office and was like, this is Oppenheimer. This is like going to be that level of like critical. Before that point, his most kind of known movies since 2010, since Night and Day, was then The Wolverine, which very mixed in terms of its position, and then Logan. So it's comic book movies he's known for. So for him to then jump over to then do something like a Dial of Destiny, an Indiana Jones film, which then you're looking at film fans of a franchise in the 80s, it's like if you got Russo brothers to do Star Wars. Like, I think it's like that type of thing where you'd go, oh, but those guys, the Avengers guys again? But you're not actually looking through it to be like, no, actually, these guys, like, they can take these franchises and do something amazing. We'll ignore the other crap that they've done. We'll ignore the fact that the Russos, unfortunately, brought us all the crappy Netflix films of late. But we'll always focus on the fact that there'll be the comic book guys. And that's then what you get known for. That's what I mean by that tentpole, to be like, well, once you have those films in your back catalogue, people can only see your big flops. If your little successes aren't so huge, then the big flops become more obvious, right? Everyone kind of knew Night and Day didn't succeed that well. It became a meme if we even have memes in 2010.
Do you think that James Mangold will win an Oscar someday? And will it take an Oscar for him to sort of like take his place amongst, I wouldn't say the absolute greats of American cinema, but up there?
Well, I mean, it depends how much stock you put in the awards. I don't really... I must admit, as time goes on, I don't put as much stock in Oscar wins or anything. No,
but it just, I think with the general public...
Because technically Oscar wins kill more careers than they do make them.
That is a very interesting point of view. We should talk about that more one day.
Absolutely.
But like Scorsese, for example, a lot of people didn't think his career was complete until he won an Oscar. And then it's like, oh, okay, now he can be easily one of the all-time greats. Yeah. That is just a thing that people put on filmmakers in general.
Yeah, but that's why I just don't think, like, you've got a lot of famous filmmakers, for instance, that don't have an Oscar, that then get given honorary ones and things like that, right? In theory, I don't know. I sometimes think it's actually better for some guys just to not have that award. Because then it allows them to constantly chase it if that's what they're after.
Yeah,
but at the same time, it also doesn't bind them. Yeah. It doesn't bind them to that Oscar win then for forever and ever. I keep going back to Adrian Brody, right? So this also ties into a film that's released in the next couple of weeks, The Brutalist, right? When he won for The Pianist, the Oscar, way back when, right? He has all but disappeared. In the time since, he all but disappeared.
Excuse me, he made King Kong.
He was in Predator as well.
I quite like Predators.
No one else did.
A few people.
But again, this is what I'm saying, is that like since he won the Oscar, he's pretty much all but disappeared. Apart from Darjeeling Limited, which he's fantastic in. He's not really been around.
I think people...
But now he's obviously turning up in The Brutalist again. It's like, right, award. Oh, it's awards. Oh, all of a sudden he's part of the conversation again. It wouldn't surprise me if he does. I wouldn't want that for Mangold. I'd want him to... I know it's different. It's actors versus production, essentially, in that essence. But... I wouldn't want him to then just go, oh, an Oscar, and then that's it. Look at poor old, what's his name? La La Land.
Damien Chazelle.
Same thing. Everyone remembers him for La La Land. I didn't mind Babylon. That's probably the hottest take that I'm going to give in today's podcast. I didn't mind Babylon. First Man was kind of a bit mixed. He's not going to get that budget again. It's probably going to do him better to stay at La La Land level. The only reason then he had to go off on this tangent and get more money and make these like highfalutin movies that kind of flopped, didn't really do that well, is because of the accolades that something like La La Land gave him. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think for someone like Chalamet, working on those smaller sense projects where he can focus on things like soundtracks and how that then drives the movie forward, I think someone like Mangold needs that too. He doesn't need that accolade of what... he won he got director. Let's say if he got best director for Logan, right, or something like that. All right, great, fantastic. But you also don't want that. It's a comic book film still.
Yeah.
Not that I've got any problems with it. I love comic book films, but it's still a comic book film that, in a world where people are going to move away from comic book movies, are then going to quickly then just associate that guy with comic books. So I think that it's an interesting question, but I think it's one that inherently doesn't denote success.
No. I think that is something that is slowly becoming more of a reality as time goes on. But the final question, based on everything we have talked about with James Mangold, would you recommend our listeners or viewers to see A Complete Unknown?
Yeah, I think so.
Even if you don't, let's say you're not into Bob Dylan or his kind of music, based on what we said, do you think that a general audience would enjoy a James Mangold biopic about Bob Dylan?
I think if we look at his back catalogue, you're looking at a character-driven movie, right? This is also we have to really say, Sam and I have not seen this film.
No,
we have no idea whether or not it's any good or not. Right?
I've heard good things. That's all I know.
That's it, right? Like from reviews alone, we kind of know that it's currently sitting green, Rotten Tomatoes, Metascore, and all of that lot, right? So we know that from that standpoint, it's okay. But purely for looking back at someone's back catalogue, Bob Dylan, right? Biopic centered on the individual, character piece, knows them at the centre of it. I think you got a pretty good chance of liking this from everything we've just said, right? Le Mans, 2 character-driven movie that he understands the protagonists as a two-hander in terms of buddy cop movie, something like that. He understands how to write a character piece like Logan, taking the superhero, putting it front and centre. Free Sense of Humour is a Western. It's basically character in itself, but it's character without any dialogue. Even better. So from that standpoint, understands that. Indiana Jones, I quite liked it. Indy was still Indy.
Yeah.
You kind of knew that.
Yeah, it didn't diminish Indiana Jones as a character.
Yeah. and he still kept the vibe going of it. He understood, like, it's that whole idea of aging. He's perfect then for that when you look at Wolverine, what he was doing in Logan, all of that stuff as well. You can kind of see where the building blocks are all heading when then he goes to do like a Dylan biopic, right? Biopic, however you pronounce it. So I think just on those alone, I think this is worth keeping on your radar, regardless of whether or not you're a Dylan fan or not. I think what this guy can do with characters and lead characters and using them as central protagonists, I think is worth a watch.
Okay. I think we should probably leave it there.
Let's leave it there.
Cool. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of the Deep Dive 5. I say the latest, it's the first.
I know.
We want to hear your opinions on the career of James Mangold. What would you rate as his career highlight? Do you think one day he may win an Oscar? If you would like to get more out of The Real Project, which is the main name of this podcast and channel, you can find us on Instagram and, of course, Spotify. Goodbye and see you soon.
Bye.